Hi guys, this is Erica from Gokce Capital.
Now before I begin, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. In 1993, Donald Trump donated a conservation easement on Mar del Lago, which limited his ability to sell antiquities on the property as well as develop it further. In granting this easement, he in turn received a large tax deduction. In fact, Trump has reportedly received millions of dollars in tax deductions through the use of conservation easements. If you're curious how much, I'll let you know at the end of this video. But first, I'm going to go over the top 7 things you need to know about conservation easements if you want to use them as a landowner to reduce your income taxes, or if you would like to preserve wildlife and natural heritage located on your property, or both. But first, let me just define what a conservation easement is. A conservation easement is an easement, which means it is a voluntary legal agreement between a landowner and another entity. In the case of a conservation easement, this other entity is a land trust or a government agency. And this legal agreement permanently limits the use of the land in order to protect its conservation values. Still, even though the use of the land is going to be limited, landowners will still retain many of their rights as landowners, including the right to own and use the land so long as the conservation value is protected, sell it, and pass it on to their heirs. And I would just make a note here that this definition comes from the Land Trust Alliance. So the purpose of a conservation easement is to protect the conservation value of the land. And this by itself may be enough of an incentive for you to look into having an easement recorded against your property. But others may be wondering why anyone would agree to do this. Well, this leads to the first thing you should know about conservation easements, and that is because you can get a great tax deduction if you donate a conservation easement. As of the time of the recording of this video, you can deduct up to 50% of your income for 16 years or until you have reached the value of the easement. So this can be a great financial incentive for you as a landowner. Alternatively, if the deduction does not seem like a large enough value for you as a landowner, some land trusts may be willing to buy an easement from you. So in this case, you would not be donating it, thus you wouldn't receive the tax benefits, but you could get an upfront payment for the value of the easement. And in exchange, a permanent easement will be granted to the land trust or the government agency that limits uses that are incompatible with conservation. So this will usually include much new development and most mining or mineral extraction, as well as often the development of things like wind turbines or solar farms. And it may also limit the use of certain vehicles like ATVs, snowmobiles, and recreational vehicles if these are deemed to be too destructive to the natural habitat. But having said all this, a conservation easement can still be pretty flexible. So often, someone who is already farming or living in a single-family home on the property will be able to retain that use once the conservation easement is in place. They may even be able to expand farm uses or build a single-family home on the property, so long as the conservation value of the property is still being retained. This is all to say that conservation easements can be flexible and work around your goals as a landowner, again, so long as you can find a balance between your use and the conservation value. Now, I mentioned that there are certain government agencies, in particular the IRS, that are involved, but this doesn't mean that donating a conservation easement will give the government access to your land. Sometimes the easement holder is a government or state agency, but the majority of conservation easements that have been recorded so far are held by nonprofit land trusts. Thus, a government agency would have no right to access your property. Having said this, though, the land trust will need to visit the property once a year to certify that you are in compliance with the easement. In a similar vein, the easement does not automatically give the public access to your land. Now, some landowners will allow public access when they donate the conservation easement, but the majority do not, because the easement in this regard will usually follow your needs as a landowner. And number 7, because the tax benefits of this program are so great, there are certain conditions that you will need to meet in order to qualify. And again, you should speak with your accountant to make sure that you are following all IRS guidelines. But generally, either you are preserving a natural habitat, or you are preserving lands that have open spaces, and this can include agricultural land. It can also include properties with historic value, which is how Trump gained his conservation easement at Mar-a-Lago. If you are going to allow public access to your land, this can be one way to qualify for conservation easement. And if you are following a clearly delineated government policy that is identified in local open space plans. So at a high level, your property must have some kind of either public value or conservation value in order to qualify for the tax deduction. So a conservation easement is a really wonderful tool and one that is not as well known as it should be among landowners. At its best, it provides a win-win scenario where key habitat, open space, and natural ecosystems are protected while at the same time retaining private property rights and providing a great tax deduction. Reportedly, Trump received $100 million in tax deductions through various conservation easements created on his properties. So the economic value of a conservation easement for you as a landowner can be very high. But again, just make sure if you are going to donate a conservation easement that you coordinate with all the appropriate professionals, including your CPA and lawyer, to make sure that you are in compliance with all IRS guidelines. Now, do you have any stories or thoughts about conservation easements? Let us know in the comments. Did you like this video? You're going to love our Gokce Land Due Diligence program. We'll make you a land due diligence expert in just 7 days. Check it out at gokcecapital.com/glad. And while you're at our website, don't forget to explore our $1 down properties at gokcecapital.com/listings. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. You can email, call, or text, and we will respond as soon as possible. So thank you for listening, and more to come.